Thank you so much for being with us tonight. And we have a very big audience, and we started in the morning having heard from Professor Yunus some words about everybody can be an entrepreneur. And then I remembered our meeting 15 years ago when we discussed your book, The Other Path, which is called in German grassroots entrepreneurship, I would call it. And so we still work on this, and as we started today with this theme, I think now Günter and me, we would like to discuss with you that everybody can be an entrepreneur. This is what you are trying to tell us. Hello, Simon.
Yes, yes, of course. Tell me, how long would you, we didn't talk about that yesterday, how long would you want to have a conversation now about this? You want me to say a few words before?
Yes, I think it would be great, but when you could start like a 5 minutes introduction, and then we would have half an hour, is that right? So we have half an hour.
This is fine, very good. Well, as you know, I have long admired the work that Günter and you are doing on entrepreneurship, because I think it is crucial that the word always be understood. In our case, of course, in developing countries, we try to convince people that what they are already doing, otherwise they wouldn't be able to survive, is actually something that can be reinforced by institutions, but it is indispensable to gain prosperity. You know, once you have prosperity, once you stop being poor, there are so many things that you can do with prosperity. Take care of your health, take care of your family, build all those good things that you need in life, have films, have books, have your families as solid as possible. But what I understand, and I've always found extremely interesting and admirable about your effort in developed countries, concretely in Germany, is that, of course, those who invented entrepreneurship, those who made it possible, starting 18th, 19th century, may have forgotten the virtues of entrepreneurship. And that's quite typical of any people after a few generations have passed. So let me dwell upon that, at least the way I see it, as a South American who looks towards Europe and tries to explain to the people I have to talk to and I work with in Africa, Asia, Latin America, even the former Soviet Union. Somewhere about the 17th, 18th century, feudalism and patrimonialism began collapsing in Europe. That is to say, the old structures that you had that were pyramidal and where basically the king, the feudal lords, and a small elite decided how production and social structures were organized, all of that was collapsing. And as that collapsed, the market started coming into place, the market and commerce, and that took form in the Industrial Revolution. Well, it produced a lot of disorder because, of course, Europe began shifting from one system of production and organization to another, which is also always very traumatic. And though we all hear about Adam Smith and we all hear about Marx, we forget that they basically drew up the big theory, but the structures of how entrepreneurship was to work, the systems of contracts, of property rights, of law that put down the rules of how people were to structure things were actually done by a series of lawyers and economists and politicians that are not well recorded in history. You had people in Germany like Gerendorf, you had people in France like Charles Coquelin, you had people in the United States like Jefferson and later Abraham Lincoln. They put down the structures. And the structures were put in to facilitate the work of entrepreneurs. And when you read them, though many of these people aren't fully published, you can only get them in journals that were published about 200 years ago, they are continually talking about how important it is to bring things together. If you remember, both Marx and Adam Smith said that one of the characteristics of the post-feudal world was the division of labor. All of a sudden, guilds weren't doing just one special thing. People were specializing. Somebody, an automobile could come in from 13,000 places. Marx talked about a locomotive made out of 5,000 parts that could come from 300 places. Adam Smith talked about a wire that could be converted into a pin by actually putting together 12 people. There's that famous experience and tale of Mead, how he explains how a pencil is made out of wood that comes from Oregon, but the wood, nobody likes it white, so you have to bring in a dye from France, and because it has to be dry kilned, you need an oven that is fabricated in Canada, and because the pencil has to contain graphite, you have to bring in graphite from Sri Lanka, but because the graphite actually breaks, then you have to bring in candelilla wax from Mexico so as to soften it so that it isn't so brittle, because nobody likes to hold the pencil in his hand and get a thorn in it. You have to give it 6 layers of lacquer, some of which come from chemistry of Switzerland and Germany. Because we humans make mistakes, we always like an eraser at the end of the pencil, but we don't like it black, we like it pink. And that means it's got to come from Saudi Arabia, and it's got to be united to the pencil with a little filament of a metal that is made out of zinc from Peru and copper from Chile and black nickel from Nigeria. By the end,